All right, here we go. All right, everybody, good morning and welcome to another issue of our Teaching Tuesday. This platform is used for all of the women in Lead Up for Women to be able to share their genius and teach on what their secret sauce is. And I love it because we're educated on, like today, we're talking about how to stop emotional eating. Next week, we're talking about how your dogs can hide pain. So it's about your dogs. We have weeks where we're talking about brain function. We have weeks where we're talking about how to, stop your limiting beliefs, how to, clear those mindsets. And sometimes we're talking about strategy on growth and wealth. So you never know what you're going to get every week here on the Teaching Tuesday, but there's always a subject for somebody, which is wonderful. So we're glad that you're all joining us today. And I'm sure there'll be many more women that join us over the next 5 to 10 minutes, which is wonderful. But I want to welcome Jen Beck, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time that I'm probably going to cough. Many of you know I was down and out last week and I was really, really sick. I did not have COVID, which is the question of the day always. I just had a virus, which, by the way, those still exist. The flu still exists, viruses still exist, and we all get sick other than COVID. So I did not have COVID, but I was deathly ill last week with IVs being administered, and it was a crazy week for me. And I bounced back. I want to say I bounced back because I have a mean immune system. So I'm thankful for all the people that work with me on helping me keep my immune system strong to be able to bounce back so quickly. And I'm excited because I know Jen talks a lot about health and food. So I'm excited to learn more about that from her today on how I can even eat healthier to continue strengthening my immune system to bounce back even faster the next time something, comes around and decides to jump into my body somehow. So Jen has been a member of Lead Up for Women for over a year. She's a huge contributor to Lead Up for Women. And so I want to welcome Jen to Teaching Tuesday, and Jen will go ahead and let you get started.
Thanks so much for Colleen for having me. I'm excited to be here today. And I'm glad that you're on the mend. And you're right, there's not just COVID that's out there. There's lots of other stuff. Today, I wanted to talk about how to end emotional eating, though, especially with the holidays coming up. It just seemed like a very timely topic. I'm doing a workshop or a webinar, masterclass, whatever you want to call it, on the 20th in my group on my page. And that's going to be talking about how to upgrade recipes and how to be able to make it healthier. And I'll pop the link in later. But with the holidays coming up, there's so many more emotions and stress and stuff that comes up. So I thought how to eat emotionally, or how to end emotional eating so we don't emotionally eat the rest of the season would make a lot of sense. So I want to start just by sharing, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I want to show you this diagram. So can you guys all see that? So this is the cycle of emotional eating. So when I first started working with Sarah, she was in her early 40s. And she was somebody that had left her corporate job and is now homeschooling her kids. She's having some challenges. She's got an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and there's not really a lot of structure, but she's doing the homeschooling thing because that's what she's supposed to be doing so that her girls get their best education and she can be the best mom and do all for her kids that she possibly can. So what happens? Her daughter throws a fit in the morning because she doesn't want to do her homework, so they get into an argument. Now she's stressed out because she's supposed to be doing the right thing. She's supposed to be leading this. And this starts the sugar shame cycle and the sugar shame spiral, right? So now she's got painful emotion. She's not feeling it like she's enough. She's not feeling like she is living up to her responsibilities. She feels like there's tension in between her and her daughter, and that's uncomfortable. So she's got all of these painful emotions that are coming up. So there's shame and there's guilt and there's frustration and anger and sadness and disappointment and all of these things. So what does she do? She walks into the pantry and she finds a bag of cookies. She has 4 or 5 cookies. And then she's like, I just need something else. So now she has a handful of nuts or 2 or 3. And then there's cupcakes that are left over from the birthday party, and she has one of those. And it just becomes this cycle. And it didn't start out that way, but over the course of time, it becomes that way, right? So she has this emotional eating episode, and guess what happens then? Oh my gosh, the remorse, the feelings of guilt and the shame for just having eaten all that stuff, because all she was doing was just reacting and responding to the situation she had. And now she has another stressful event. And this cycle, it's, it reminds me of like making cotton candy, right? I mean, her cycle of shame was just, or spiral of shame was just sprinkled with sugar the entire way down. And it's kind of like when you're making cotton candy, it starts with liquid sugar, and then you put the air in it. And then as you're spinning, it looks beautiful, right? You've got this amazing puff of spun candy, spun sugar. But what happens if you look down? You are covered in it and it's sticky. And when you start to eat it, now the stickiness is on your fingers, and the stickiness can get in your hair and everywhere else. And so now we're coated. Just like that sugar and cotton candy coats us, so does our shame. And this is a spiral that I see so many women go through. Maybe not to the same extent that Sarah did, but looking at those emotions and the cycle and how one just kind of catalyzes into the next, and we're all of a sudden in the spin, right? How many of you have ever had a situation in the morning where you're on a diet, you're watching what you're eating, you're really doing well, and that morning you had to race out the door and you had to grab a donut instead of your normal smoothie or the healthy breakfast you normally eat? And then what happens? So if you guys have ever experienced that, put yes in the chat box, right? If you've ever had to grab something, maybe you had to go through a drive-through, maybe it was a donut or something like that, but something that you wouldn't necessarily be consuming on a regular basis, right? I think we've all been there. So what happens for a lot of people, and if this is true for you, I want you to put free day in the chat. Because what happens for a lot of people is they grab the donut, they go through the drive-thru, and they go, oh, I screwed up the day today. Today I'm just gonna eat whatever because I've already ruined it now. So I'm just gonna eat whatever. I'm gonna have a free day until tomorrow, and I'll start again tomorrow. If you've ever done that, just put free day in the chat, right? A lot of people have, because I love that, Colleen. No, but I have gone through the drive-thru and get their egg white wrap. Not the best to eat, but you love it, right? And if I'm gonna eat something at Starbucks, it's usually that too, because it's egg whites and there's some veggies in there and so on and so forth, right? So, but when we think about that free day, right? That's like if we get pulled over in the morning for speeding by the police officer, it's like instead of actually being a conscious driver the rest of the day or the next month so we don't get another ticket, that's like going, well, I screwed up today. I'm no longer an outstanding citizen, so I'm going to rob a bank. I'm going to shoplift. I'm going to kidnap somebody. I might as well shoot somebody. And I'll be a good citizen again tomorrow. Right? But that's kind of the liberty that we take when we screw up that one time. We give ourselves a free day. So waiting for Thanksgiving. I love it, Melissa. So think about this when we're looking at the free day, when we're looking at the spin cycle. My job today, my goal today is to give you the awareness to be able to make some choices and to give you some practical, applicable things so you can stay out of the sugar shame cycle. Right? Because it is just invasive. And once we start that, it can really become debilitating. Right? And so I want to give you some awareness and see if you can check in with where you're at and how emotional eating fits into your life. Because once you're aware, then you can be able to make different choices. But if we're not aware that there's an issue in the first place, we just kind of keep going through the motions. Right? So I want to ask you, I want to give you kind of a little assessment. So are you an emotional eater? There's 5 questions. I want you to just tally up how many questions you answer yes to and put that in the chat. Number 1, do I eat when I'm feeling stressed, bored, guilty, or frustrated? Trying to reduce those feelings. Okay. Do I stuff myself with anything that's available? Right. Number 3 is when I'm hungry, only certain foods will stop that hunger. So do you have specific cravings, or there's certain things you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't eat this, then I'm just not going to be satisfied? Number 4 is, do you feel guilty after you've eaten more of those comfort foods? And number 5 is, do I regularly overeat carbohydrates or fatty foods? So think about what you eat, not just when you eat it, but also what you eat. So put how many of those that you answered yes to in the chat box. Okay. That'll give you a kind of a good idea of where you're at as far as being an emotional eater. 4, 1, 1, 5, right? And we all have tendencies that there are certain parts of this that we use for emotional eating. And it's natural, right? I mean, we put our foods and we put our emotions into foods. Think about holidays, right? We have certain foods. Melissa was saying, I'm waiting for Thanksgiving. There's certain foods that make that holiday for us. There are certain foods that remind us of somebody, of a connection with somebody. There's certain foods that just naturally make us feel better. Now, there's also 2 different types of emotional eating. There is stress eating, and then there's emotional eating. And remember, awareness equals choice. We've got to be aware of what is the driver behind something before we can actually create an action plan that will take us out of that spin. Okay. So there's 2 different types of eating. Number 1 is stress eating, right? This is where, like, all of a sudden you're like, I need to shove something in my mouth because I can't handle this right now, right? It comes on really quickly. It's more of that, that intense feeling, right? It's more frenetic, it's frantic, it's, it's an acute sensation. It's really, you feel it in your body, right? And it's usually from an external trigger. Something happened to you, or you're involved in a situation. Maybe it's an argument. There's a mounting deadline. You got into it with your boss or your spouse or something like that, right? So that's stressing, where it's that initial reaction where it's like, I just need to quash this feeling right now. The other side of things is the emotional eating. And emotional eating is where we're kind of walking in the pantry and we're going, what sounds good? I just need something, right? And we're trying to fill more of that void. You're going to have a craving with this. It kind of tends to come on a little bit slower. You're going to be more thoughtful when you're looking at, what would satisfy me right now? What's going to fulfill this? It's more of that wandering and kind of going, I wonder, right? So there's that more of the emotional need. They're both reactions to what we're feeling. But again, when we're looking at what's going to help me feel better, when we get more in tune with what we're feeling, it's easier to figure out what we need and what's going to help us to satisfy that, right? When you think about how you react to food, are you more of an emotional eater or are you more of a stress eater? So just put emo, EMO in the chat, or just put stress and let me know, are you more of a stress eater or are you more of an emotional eater? Emotional, yeah. For some of you, you may be a combination of the 2. Right? You may feel like you are stressed, and like maybe the holidays for you are stressful, and there are certain emotional components that you're like, oh, I just need, for me, Thanksgiving isn't Thanksgiving unless I have my dad's stuffing, right? That for me was always a thing growing up because I've never had anybody else make. He makes a rye bread with caraway seed stuffing, and it just is, for me, one of those things that the 2 go hand in hand. Sure, usually stress. I don't eat, so maybe emotional combination. Yeah, and we all have different relationships with food and different foods that we put our emotions into, right? For some, it's, every day after school, grandma gave me a cookie, whether it was a good day or a bad day. So every emotion equals food. I have a client who was in the hospital when she was 8 and they couldn't get her to eat anything. And she was really dehydrated and she was losing weight quickly. And her mom and dad go, well, I don't know, maybe just give her a Coke to get some calories in her. And normally her dad was traveling for work, so he wasn't around a whole lot. But when she was in the hospital, boy, he was by her bedside, and he was the one that was serving her the Coke. And so from that point forward, she had kind of an addictive relationship with Coke. Whenever she started feeling sad or lonely, she would go for a Coke, not consciously, subconsciously. But when we can start sussing out kind of what those connections are, it really helps us to find other things that are going to satisfy us instead. Okay. I used to love starchy foods, but no more. Yeah, and Helen, starchy foods are one of those things too, where if you are sensitive to them, your body will crave them more. If you have unstable blood sugars, your body will crave them more. So there's certain physical components to the cravings that we have as well. And there's the emotional connections to it too. So it's really looking at, what is the need? And so if we're thinking about somebody that really doesn't have a lot of that emotional eating, those people tend to typically be very balanced emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. When we have a gap in one of those areas, we tend to go towards something physical, right? When we're feeling bored or not stimulated, we'll have a craving for something maybe spicy. If we're feeling stressed, we'll have a craving for something crunchy or salty, because the salt supports our adrenals and the crunch can help break up that physical stress we're feeling. We crave sweets because we're looking for that sweetness in life, or we're looking for more love, or we're looking for a connection with the person that is connected to that food, right? So I want you to close your eyes for just a second and think about your first memory of food. What's the first memory that pops up? Is it a sweet? Is it pasta dinner? Is it grandma's big Sunday dinner? Like, what are those things that are popping up for you? What's that first memory of food? And I would love it if one or two of you guys just kind of unmuted and just shared what that is for you. Like, what was the first memory of food that came to mind? Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I was remembering, this is sad, I was remembering have to hide under the table during dinner because of my mother's hysteria.
Is there any specific food that you connect that with?
No.
Okay. Are there any foods that you have a strong craving or an aversion to?
No aversion. I like everything, sadly.
Okay. That's not sad. I mean, having a wide, diverse palate is good.
Okay. I can't think that I crave anything in specific. Sugar sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sugar is one of the things. So think about it this way. Sugar and fats equal hugs and kisses. So sometimes if we didn't get enough hugs and kisses as kids, we have cravings for more fat and sugar. If we are missing a connection with somebody, we will tend to crave something that we have a connection with that person with, right? Do you have a happy memory of food, Annie?
Cooking.
Cooking?
Yeah, in general, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I don't do it anymore, though.
Cooking, did you cook with anyone, and did anybody teach you how to cook?
No, I went to a junior high class in summer school, and I learned how. And I started cooking for my family when I was 12 because my mother didn't like to cook, and I liked it.
That's awesome. So there's a sense of pride, it sounds like, with cooking for you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. And so for some people, they'll find fulfillment with doing that, right? With cooking, because that's where that sense of pride or fulfillment or connection comes from. That's awesome. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Cheryl?
For me, it's chocolate, specifically dark chocolate. And like you said, it equates to hugs and kisses. I know where I get that love. It's from my mother. So I literally crave what she craved. And it was, she would binge on it. You know, it's a forbidden something that she loved. And then she'd eat too much of it. Well, guess what I do? So, and it's where I go when I get stressed, and it doesn't make sense. So,
well,
yeah.
It does make sense. It may not, the reason driving it may not be in your awareness or your consciousness yet, but we don't do anything unless we get something out of it. Right? So part of that is kind of finding what that driver is. And it may be that you follow mom's footsteps, or it may be this is what I have as an example of how to cope with my emotions. And it may help you feel closer to her when you're in those stressful times. Do any of those
Exactly.
resonate?
All of it.
All of it, okay.
Absolutely all of it. I get where it started, but now it's my own crutch. It's something I love. Just, whenever the doctor says in moderation, I have to chuckle to myself because I'm not quite good at that yet. I can withstand pretty much anything. It's chocolate. That's my downfall.
Yeah. So. And the key is to be able to find the healthiest version of, evaluate the driver behind it, and then eat mindfully. And we're going to talk more about each one of those over the course of the rest of our time. But that's great that you have that awareness that it was connected with mom, because that will help you to go, okay, so what do I need to feel right now? What am I trying to fix with this food? What void is there that I'm looking for it to fill? And not everybody uses food as their way of filling a void, whether it be mental, emotional, or spiritual. Some people will overwork. Some people will oversleep, over Netflix, over workout, over exercise, right? So, I mean, it's like, there's lots of other things that we can do physically that are tangible that we can fill that void with. Okay, so thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Okay, so when we're thinking about those foods and what they mean, right? Another one is dairy. Dairy for a lot of people brings happiness. Think about that wholesomeness that we grew up, like, got milk, it's a big smile, all of those things. Sometimes we're looking for spice, we're bored, or we're looking for something to get us out of that rut. So everything has a reason for it. Some of it is physical and some of it is mental and emotional. So part of it is pausing and going, okay, so why do I want this? Overeaters Anonymous uses an acronym called HALT. And if you struggle with emotional eating, I would write this down, okay? So the H is for hungry. Am I physically hungry? Okay. And when you're physically hungry, your stomach's starting to growl. It's been 3-4 hours since you've eaten. You can feel the hunger pangs coming on, right? If there's no hunger pangs, you're not hungry. You might be A for angry, right? And this is that what I was talking about, that stress energy, where it's kind of that, like, there's a lot of energy behind it, right? And it's usually negative energy, frustration, anger, some of those feelings. And then the L in HALT is for lonely. And this is more that nostalgic feeling. This is more that emotional eat where it's like, oh, what sounds good? I just need something. What would make me feel good? What would be good right now? And that's more of that lonely, where we're looking for something to fill in that gap. The T is for tired. You could be physically tired, mentally tired, emotionally tired, spiritually tired. All of them will drive that craving for something that's going to give you more energy, which is typically carbs and sugar, right? If we're looking for more of that love and that comfort, we're going to typically go towards fats. So think about that when you feel a craving coming on, or you feel like you need to eat something or find something, just pause and go, okay, so what do I want it to fix? Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Like, what's coming up right now that I'm using food for outside of just filling my belly? Okay. Helen says, interesting. My mom passed away in 2000. She loved milk chocolate. That might be your connection to dark chocolate. Yeah, and if you're somebody that's really health conscious too, Helen, it's like, oh, I can't do milk chocolate, but I can do dark chocolate. And so it's the chocolate connection, and we've just upgraded it because, this is 2020. You can't eat milk chocolate.
Right. And it's supposed to be good for you, just not in quantity.
Right. I mean, if you sit down and eat a full bag of chocolate chips a day, like, that might be a challenge. But, and here's the thing, you've got to give yourself permission to be okay with taking care of your emotions, because there are times when it is okay to eat emotionally, because there are benefits to the nurture that we get from the foods that we eat, as long as it's in moderation, as long as we do it intentionally. And you know what, if you gorge yourself on an entire cheesecake, because that's what mom used to make on Christmas, like, do you do it every day or do you do it once a year? Right? So everything is about perspective, and how do we give ourselves permission to indulge and focus on nourishment, because for me, it's a 90-10 rule, right? 90% of the time I'm focused on nourishment. The 10% ain't going to kill me. So if I sat down and ate a chocolate bar every single day of the week for a week, because I'm, PMSing and I don't have any magnesium, like whatever, it's that week and it's done, or it's that day and it's done. So part of the challenge is that a lot of people deny themselves any kind of emotional satisfaction from food. And I would say that is not ideal, because what it does is it creates more cravings. We feel more deprived, and then we indulge and overindulge even more. So we're going to talk about being mindful and choosing what you want to do. But part of this is really paying attention to, what are those cravings telling me, right? What is at the root cause of what's going on? Because if we can really manage our emotions to feel them and process them and move through them, we'll have a lot easier time managing what goes in our mouth and not have it be a reaction to those. Does that make sense? Okay. So we want to look at, am I eating because of stress, or because of a reward, or because of pleasure, or cravings, or habit, right? Sometimes we just get in that habit. I have a woman that hated her job. So every day she walked in the door, she would come in through the garage and she would pour a glass of wine and she started cooking dinner. Well, over the course of the night, she would drink like one of those big bottles of wine. Well, like a normal bottle, which is 4 glasses, she would drink a whole big bottle. So we're talking, what is that, like 2.5 bottles a day? And so with her, we had to figure out how to break that habit. So instead of coming in through the garage and seeing the wine in front of her, she had to come in the front door, put on her shoes and go upstairs, or go upstairs and put on her shoes and go for a walk before she started making dinner. So we changed her routine and broke the habit of what she was doing. For some of you, it may be sitting down after dinner on the couch and having a glass of wine, or having some chocolate, or that habit of what's next. Some people have the habit of always having something sweet after a meal, right? Are there any specific habits that you guys have?
Sweet after a meal.
Sweet after a meal?
Yeah. Don't mean to interrupt, but nailed it.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. And I think it's really, really common too, Cheryl. Anybody else have one? Night eating. Have a glass of red wine when I cook dinner. Yeah, and again, everything in moderation. So if if you're hungry, a couple hours after dinner, having a snack before you go to bed isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of people that need to do that and have a fattier snack so they stabilize their blood sugar overnight. It's not that what you do is right or wrong, as long as it's working for you and not working against you, right? Having a glass of wine is nice and enjoyable and relaxing. Just remember, more than one glass of wine is actually detrimental to our health. And for women, it increases our risk of breast cancer. So everything in moderation, right? And ideally have your glass of wine with dinner so your body metabolizes the alcohol better. Doesn't give you quite the same rush of relaxation, but your body has the ability to utilize it even better, okay? So some of that is just raising the awareness of what's working for us and what our habits are. And if it's a habit that is not serving us where we want to go and where we want to be, right? So part of that is looking at what are our goals for our health and for our life. And sometimes we can utilize food or alcohol to fill that void, and it becomes our greatest source of happiness and energy. So really being aware of what that role is of food and wine and stuff like that into our life will help you to determine if it's working for you or not. I've worked with a couple of women that their food and wine, or their food and sugar, is their only source of joy. And so it's really hard for them to quit the habit because there's nothing to replace it with. And when we feel deprived and we feel restricted and we feel like there's a void, the universe doesn't like a vacuum. So it tries to fill it with something. And we usually slide right back into our old habits again. Okay. So anybody have any questions at this point? Okay. Cool. So let's talk about some strategy then. Helen says, so if I'm feeling weepy and have a glass of wine, what's causing that? Well, that would be a good question, right? So what is the driver behind why you're feeling weepy? Are you feeling weepy before the wine or after the wine? You can unmute, Helen, if you want.
Okay. Before.
Before. Okay. And so you're looking for the wine to help console you, calm it down. Okay. Is there a certain trigger that you feel like is there consistently that's triggering that weepy feeling?
I'll put it in chat.
Okay. I'll quit the habit of taking wine. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's okay as long as it's working for you, right? Sometimes it gets to a place where it's a slippery slope and it's one piece of chocolate and then it becomes one chocolate bar. It's one glass of wine and then it becomes one glass of wine every day. And then that can go into 2 glasses of wine and so on and so forth. So Helen, it's the signs of your husband, can't talk. Your husband showing signs of depression is what triggers that in you. Yeah, and I'm guessing that's because you care a lot about him and you want him to be happy and his depression impacts you as well. Yeah, and it's hard when you've got a huge heart and you can tell that just, I mean, by the fact that touches your heart so much, you can tell that you've got a huge heart. So one of the things that you can do is how do you take care of you in those moments, right? Because too often we put ourselves on the back burner trying to take care of somebody else, but we can't pour from an empty cup, right? It's like the flight attendant says, put your oxygen mask on first before assisting another passenger. And if we're more worried about how somebody else is doing than taking care of ourselves, then we're depleting ourselves, right? One of the easiest things you can do is give yourself a hug. Just literally just give yourself a great big hug, close your eyes. And sometimes it's important to also think about how old do I feel right now, right? Because it's the little girl inside of us that needs the comfort and needs the reassurance and needs to know that we're okay. So literally just giving yourself a hug and just comforting yourself in your mind or out loud is enough to be able to kind of diminish that and process that emotion and then take some deep breaths, right? And it's okay to cry when you're feeling weepy. Crying is just energy leaving the body. Now you may feel like you can't do that with your husband there because he's depressed and then he's going to worry about you and you don't need him to worry about you because he's worried about you because you're worried about him, like that whole dynamic. I don't know if that rings true for you or not, but I see that with a lot of women. And the work, you do, this is exactly what I tell others. Why not say this for me? Because it's hard to be our own coach. It's hard to coach ourselves, right? And it's hard to see our blind spots.
Sorry, there were so many typos. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I kind of got the gist, at least I think I got the gist of what you were saying. Right? It's easy to tell somebody else that, but you're not doing it for you. Yeah. Yeah. So it's looking at how do you take care of you? And it may be that you need to do more proactive caretaking for you so that those moments aren't as hard, right? It's making sure you get ample sleep. It's making sure that you take some self-care, right? Maybe that's an Epsom salt bath or a walk out in nature or spending some time just doing things that fulfill you. But it's those things that are the preempting to make sure that we can manage our emotions that much better. Taking some deep breaths and just blowing out. I think that John Assaraf wrote a book called Inner Sizes. And in it, he talks about take 6. And it's taking 6 deep breaths in and out. So you count 6 seconds in. And as you do it, you're thinking, I'm breathing in calm. And then as you exhale, I'm exhaling sadness or fear or stress or anxiety or whatever that emotion is. I will tell you that I hate the dentist, total phobia. I'd sit there with my fingers gripped on the chair and just, anxiety. And I did take 6 when I first learned about this while I'm sitting in the chair. I literally fell asleep in the chair. So firsthand, hand to God, this works. So if you're trying to process an emotion, just breathing through it with intention and verbalizing and naming what that emotion is can create huge shifts. Okay. Sometimes just taking those moments to be able to process is so massive. So you're welcome. And yes, self-care is by far one of the most important things that we could do. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, nobody else is going to, right? And if we can't take care of ourselves, or we're not taking care of ourselves, it's really hard to take care of somebody else too. Okay. So one of those first pieces is really looking at what are our triggers, right? I get weepy and then I have a glass of wine. I feel stressed, so I eat some crackers or some chocolate. You know, I'm feeling hormonal, so I go eat a cheeseburger and fries, right? Whatever it is for you, maybe it's ice cream, maybe it's cookies. What are those foods that are your go-to? And start connecting the dots. Start looking at, okay, so I ate this. Why did I eat that? And in the beginning, it's probably easier to backtrack what you just ate and then go, why did I eat that? Then you'll get to move into the place where before you eat, you'll pause. All right, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Like, what am I feeling right now? What do I want this craving of chocolate, cookies, wine, whatever to fix? Right? What am I looking for that to fill? And then you'll get to a place where you can really just be with that food and not have it be a driver for your actions, right? It won't have power over you anymore. It'll just be something that's there. And this is coming from a girl that used to drive around with like the big value size bag of Twizzlers and Skittles in my car at all times, because I just had such a sugar problem. So really look at, why did I just eat what I did? And then look at proactively, what do I want this to fix? And then how do I choose to be with this food and not have it control me? And that's really getting that place of peace where I can eat a piece of chocolate now, but I'll have one square and I'm good. So it's that peace that we're making with that food and understanding what it's trying to tell us. Right? Our body talks to us every single day. And sometimes we listen, and most of the time we don't, until it becomes the 2x4 moment where we've done something so long, or we're in a situation where it's impacting the quality of our life. And then we're like, oh, I need to do something with this, right? I'm glad I'm not the only one, Annie. Thanks. Right? So look at what your triggers are. One of the other key things that you can do to set yourself up for success is to start your day with breakfast, right? Eat a good protein-based breakfast. Now, why would I say eat a protein-based breakfast? Somebody tell me why that would be important.
Keeps you full longer?
Yeah, it starts to stabilize your blood sugar right from the get-go, Cheryl. Right? So it does keep you satisfied longer. So if especially depending on what your metabolic design is, right? We all have a metabolic design, and that means that it's what certain foods are the best fuel for your body. So there's a carbohydrate design, there's a mix, and then there's a protein design, and there's all levels of the spectrum in between. It's one of the services that I do with my clients is we help them figure out how much protein, fiber, and fat they need to eat, and then which of those foods are their best fuel and which ones are slowing them down. So I'm a protein design, which means my body processes carbohydrates and food very, very quickly and turns it into energy. So if I eat a Cliff Bar or a bowl of oatmeal, I'm hungry a half an hour later because my blood sugar goes whoop and then crashes. So I need something that's got protein. So for me, doing an omelet with like a half an avocado, awesome breakfast. Somebody on the other end of the spectrum is a carbohydrate. They need to eat things that are higher in carbohydrates, but also higher in fiber. So like oatmeal with some nuts and seeds, maybe a little bit of protein powder mixed in, right? Or having an egg with it or something like that. So they're still getting the protein. And if they need more carbohydrates, they've got more fiber, which also slows down that sugar hit. Okay. So we start with a good solid breakfast. It stabilizes our blood sugar throughout the course of the day much better. Because our blood sugar, when you have a crash in your blood sugar, you're automatically going to have cravings. because you're depleted, right? So we need to make sure that we're having a good stability in our blood sugar all day long. Starting the day with protein is going to set us up for success, okay? And remember, everybody's body is different. So you've got to look at, you know, what your body responds best to, okay? So you can start figuring that out by just food journaling. And how do you feel an hour or two after you eat? We'll start giving you some indications of that, okay? Number two, to be able to really set yourself up for success is to have a plan. What else can I do in those moments? And like literally write out a plan. When I'm feeling like, if you know that your triggers are frustrated, you want a distraction from work because you know that you've got, like you're a procrastinator when you've got a big project and you're like, I need a snack. Oh, you know what? The dog needs to go out. And we just find all the reasons why not to start. If that's you, how do you get yourself to take action, right? If you're somebody that's bored, or you're a TV muncher, or you're somebody that you eat when you get sad, or when you feel, you know, maybe like you've gotten triggered and you feel like you're not enough. Like, what are those feelings that you feel? And what do you typically use to satisfy those? Create a plan B. Create a list of all of the things that you can do that will help keep you out of the kitchen or keep you out of the wine bottle, right? What are those things? Maybe it's mindful, you know, mindful breathing. It could be taking a walk. It could be reading a book. It could be calling a friend. It could be giving yourself a hug, right? There's a million different things that can satisfy your emotions without you being the one to do this instead of to take care of your emotions themselves. Okay, so create that plan B and really have an action plan that you can lean on and have it somewhere that you'll see consistently. Okay, exercising is another great tool that you can use because the endorphins that you release when you exercise are going to help you to feel good. Relaxation techniques, like I said, deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, you know, all of those pieces. One of my favorite ones is just closing your eyes and imagining there's a glass of water with sand in it. And your emotions are somebody stirring that has stirred that sand. So now you see all the sand just swirling in that glass. And now watch it start to slow down. And watch all that sand start to settle in the bottom of the glass. And as it settles, the more grounded you feel. And it literally can take 15 to 30 seconds. And you can take it down a notch. Little things like that. And I've got a ton of them, which I actually teach in my programs that really help you to go from where you're at now and create all of those tools and those resources. So you've got them in a stress kit, right? You've got those at your fingertips to be able to take care of. You know, thinking about what you're eating before you eat it, and then eating it slowly. And Cheryl, this is specifically key for you when we're talking about chocolate. If you have a chocolate bar sitting in front of you, break off a piece. Let it melt in your mouth, wait 30 seconds, and then do it again. See how much you actually need to feel satisfied, right? 3 bites of something saturates our taste buds. So there's nothing new to excite your taste buds with that. It's just more of the same. Okay, so think about how intentional you're being with what you're eating. Shows you have something to add?
No, I was going to say I'm definitely going to do that.
It is amazing
how that works. It's just slowing down and enjoying it instead of by quantity. It's the quality of what I'm consuming.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So look at it, smell it, taste it, listen to yourself chew it, feel the texture of it in your mouth, right? Utilize all of your senses in emotional or in mindful eating so that you're not racing through something. Because I mean, reality is most people don't get any comfort from comfort food because they're inhaling it. So instead of inhaling your food, really be mindful and participate with it so you can feel amazing.
I was told that you should try and chew your food as much as possible, almost to the point where it's like mush, right? Yes. So that could be like upwards of 15 to 25 times. And I've done that. I've actually, the other day when I was eating, I was just chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing, like trying to get it to the point where it was totally chewed up. It takes like a lot of chews, you know?
It does, especially if you're doing salad or something.
Yeah. You could chew like 25 to 30 times and it takes you a lot longer, but it helps those salivary glands like start,
Yes.
working to like process the food to help you digest the food better. So there's so much that's healthy in not gobbling down food. And I find that for myself when I work during the day and I'm not eating regularly and I'm just drinking a shake, by the time I get to dinner, I'm so hungry that I just like inhale my dinner as fast as I can within like 5 minutes. It's like not healthy. That's not good
Right.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
A good rule of thumb is you want to drink your solids and chew your liquids.
right.
Because even if you're doing a smoothie, you still need to chew. So the masticating is actually what releases the enzymes. So drink your solids, chew them up enough so you just swallow them because they've been liquefied, like what Colleen's talking about, and chew your liquids so you're releasing those digestive enzymes. Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, I've got one more diagram that I want to show you guys. If I can move my screen. Okay, so this is what happens on the other end of the spectrum. When you put these things in place, when you do the mindful eating, when you pause and you halt and you check in with why you want what you want, when you are taking some deep breaths, when you're practicing patience, right? Delay, don't deny. You can wait 10, 20 minutes to eat. You can brush your teeth right after you finish a meal. So you don't eat something sweet, you've got the fresh minty cleanness in your mouth. Drinking a glass of warm water with lemon or a cup of herbal tea is another great tool, right? So you can still have the stressful event, but now you've got better coping mechanisms. You've got your plan B list. You've got what are those pieces that I'm going to do? You're mindfully eating. So even if you go to the cookies that you've always gone to, you'll eat it slower with more intention, and you'll eat one or two versus an entire bag. Right? You've addressed your feelings because you've worked through them versus just stuffing them or squashing them or just masking them with whatever that medicine is, that self-medication, whether it's sugar or wine or fatty foods or chocolate or whatever, right? So you're actually addressing the feelings instead of stuffing them. And then you get to celebrate your success. Wow, I had 2 bites of chocolate. I'm totally good. And I could say no, I'm feeling really good. Now, the next time you go into that successful event, you actually get to celebrate what you did last time, and you'll feel better and you'll manage it better. So it's not all or nothing today. I'm not saying I expect you to be perfect tomorrow, but do what you can do with what you have right now and be intentional about it. Okay, be really intentional about what you're creating in your life. And I will tell you, the more that you create love and laughter and abundance and fun and sweet moments, the less food you are going to be craving. Because it's when we have those voids that we experience, that's what we turn to emotional eating for. That's what we turn to those foods that we're going to fill that instead. Okay, so think about whenever you want to stuff something in your face, think about what are the things that we talked about today so that you can actually create the lifestyle and the feelings that you want to have, and it's not overrunning you. Okay, I would love for you guys just to type what's your biggest takeaway today? Just type in the chat. And let me know what's the number one thing you're going to do differently, your biggest aha, or your biggest takeaway from today. Hug myself. Love it. Explore the root causes. Ask myself why I have a craving. Know the understanding behind it. That's huge. When you can really get into the why behind it, it allows you to shift and go, I'm aware, I'm concerned that I don't think that's working for me anymore. I'm going to do something different, right? Mindfulness, slower eating, savoring the food versus inhaling it. Yeah, how I feel 1 to 2 hours after eating, not right away how you feel. True, because most people eat junk and then they go, oh my God, I feel so good. But it's the hour or two later that the gut stuff starts, or the headache starts, or the joint pain kicks in, or they're beating themselves up about it, right? To take the advice I give others and remember I can use it for yourself. Yes, Helen, absolutely. Take care of you. Yeah, no more inhaling, right? I love pizza, but I always feel like crap an hour later. Yes, that's really common. And a lot of times it's not, I can do a little bit of gluten, I can do a little bit of dairy, but when you combine those two, oh, not pretty, right? Watch what I'll be eating and take wine in moderation. I'm going to do cauliflower crust. Yes, the cauliflower crust is much better. It's amazing. Like I used to do gluten-free crust, and we used to go to Mod Pizza, and in their gluten-free crust, there's 740 calories in a gluten-free
really
crust.
crappy. It's really crappy tasting too. It's so bad.
It's insane.
Like just eating a piece of cardboard on the bottom of like pizza. Yeah.
Yes. It's like, why bother?
But
Yep.
cauliflower crust is actually really savory and really good. Like, you know, a veggie burger versus like a regular hamburger. They're savory and there's a lot of flavor. And
Yes.
I don't feel as yucky. I just pile it with vegetables and then I feel good.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here. I love the participation. I have a couple of things for you. I have a workshop I'm teaching, a webinar I'm teaching on, well, it's more of a workshop because we're going to actually create a plan for the holidays. And it's Saturday the 20th at 10. I'm going to put a link for that in the chat for you. I would love it if you join it. It's complimentary, but it is the holiday season is upon us. And so what we're going to do is create a plan based on some of those stuff we talked about today. How do we mindfully get through the holidays? And at the same time, I'm going to help you upgrade recipes. We're going to look at how do we manage the holiday gatherings, and mom or grandma who goes, you can have one more bite. Oh, you're not on a diet. You can have plenty of that and dishing it out, right? And sometimes we feel like we can't say no because of the emotional pressure. So I'm going to teach you how to be able to handle that and really set you up for success. And I know that some of you guys are like, okay, I need to take this another step further. I've got some specific questions. I want to give the opportunity. I've got three spots open in my calendar next week where I can be able to do a complimentary 30-minute session, which we can dive into what we talked about today. Or if there's something else that you're struggling with, your health or your weight, we can address that. I call it a barrier breakthrough session. And it's just a 30-minute time, but we can be able to talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and then what are the barriers that you're standing in your way. You know, a lot of people have a desire to lose weight, but they don't realize that there's a dozen reasons why we have weight loss resistance. And so if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to improve your health, this is an opportunity for us to be able to kind of dive in and figure out exactly what's going on, create an action plan, and then help you to take the right next step that's going to be in your best interest. Okay. So if you're interested in that, go to talkwithjenbeck.com. Like I said, I've got 3 spots open next week, but I would love to connect with you. And I'm super excited to see you guys throughout the rest of the year, through the holiday season at Teaching Tuesdays and with Colleen's, Thursday lunch and learns and stuff like that. So thanks so much for being here. And thanks for having me, Colleen.
Jen, that was amazing. Wasn't she awesome? Totally. Yay. So all of you should take advantage of that, by the way, right? So we only have one body. We only have one life. And like I said, I just got really sick, right? And so I went back to Melissa, who helps me with detoxes. And I said, maybe my immune system isn't as strong as I thought. And she said, no, I actually think that it is because you bounce back so fast. So I just kind of looked at it from a different perspective. But we have to take care of our bodies, ladies. So book that call with Jen. I mean, for her to offer that for free is wonderful. So she can help you just kind of get a grasp on, why are you drinking more wine? Why are you, is it out of boredom? Are you eating out of boredom? Are you eating things just because that's your blueprint, like Cheryl talked about from when you were a child? Take advantage of everything she has to offer, because the only way you make change is, 1, bringing awareness to it, which we did today. Now you're aware of it. 2 is by making the choice to make a change in your life. And then 3 is to commit to the change. So the only way you're going to do that is with guidance of someone that's an expert in that field and can help you. And Jen's definitely that. So Jen, thanks for being here today and offering that. It's very generous to our community. So next week, you guys, I'm going to drop it in the chat. We're going to be talking with Joanne, and she is going to be helping us talk about pain with your dogs. Now, I don't have any dogs. You guys all know that. But I'm still going to be here facilitating. But if you have a dog, which I know Cheryl does, Vicki, do you have a dog? Monica, do you have a dog? Annie, do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Annie has a cat. Helen, do you have a dog? No.
I have a dog.
So Jen has a dog. I'll be here, but I know that anyone who has a dog, it's like part of their family. And my
Yeah.
dogs were too when I was raising my kids and we had dogs. So if you don't know what's going on with your dogs and if they could be hiding pain or how things could be happening in their body, Joanne is like a master at this, at helping you really understand what's happening. And I love that we have women just doing so many different things in different industries to help us really in our entire life, in every part of our life. So if you know of anyone who has dogs, invite them to this. It's free. Send them the link and say, hey, maybe they have an older dog and they've had their dog on medications. Just invite them. They can come here for free. They don't have to be a member of Lead Up for Women, and they can just come listen to Joanne next week, talk a little bit about. I have adjusted the time just so you all are aware. Today was like a whoopsie. Colleen was sick and then everything just fell flat. We had daylight savings time. So we generally keep the same time, meaning I don't switch it on my schedule. So it will be moving up an hour for all of you starting next week. So pay attention to that when you register, because all of the times have been changed online now to update with the daylight savings time. So I just wanted to let you guys be aware of that. So Jen and I were on here at 9 o'clock my time this morning. I'm like, no one's getting on. I think she's like, yeah, with the daylight savings. I was like, oh my gosh, I never changed anything. So we jumped off and jumped back on an hour later, and here we were. So I just wanted to let you guys know that those times are going to change a little bit, and then we'll see you next week. So Jen, thank you so much for being here. Ladies, have a wonderful week and control your cravings. Get to know the why behind your eating or drinking, because drinking is just as bad. All right, you guys have a wonderful week. We'll see you.
Thanks
Bye-bye,
very
Jen.
much. Thank you,
Thanks,
Jen.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
ladies.